Tenali Raman and the Yard of Smoke. One day, King Krishna Deva Raya and his courtiers were talking about intelligence. Some courtiers who were jealous of the clever jester Tenali Raman said, "We are as intelligent as Raman, but we don't get a chance to show how clever we are." The king thought, "I must put an end to their jealousy, but how?" Just then, he looked around the room and saw some incense sticks in front of the altar, with the scented smoke spreading around. He suddenly had an idea. "Okay," he said to the waiting courtiers, "I will give you all a chance to prove your intelligence. I will agree that the one who passes this test is cleverer than Raman." He continued, "Do you see that smoke rising from the incense stick? Well, I want you to bring me a yard of that smoke." The courtiers were shocked and upset to hear this. They all tried hard the whole evening, but they all failed. "How can anybody catch or measure smoke?" they thought in dismay. At last the king said, "Since all of you have failed, let's ask Raman to try." "Raman, are you ready? Can you bring me a yard of smoke?" Raman jumped up and said, "Yes, Your Majesty, I would like to try." He then whispered something to his servant, who at once disappeared. And came back with a long glass tube. Everyone waited and watched in silence. Now what will he do? They wondered. Raman took the tube, which was only open at one end, walked over to the incense sticks, and held the open end over the smoke. The smoke slowly began to fill the tube. When it was full, he blocked the open end with a cloth and took it to the king. "Your Highness, here is the smoke you want," he said. "The tube is a yard long. You can measure it to check the length." The king smiled and looked at his courtiers. He said, "Now you know why Raman is the most intelligent man here? It is time you all accepted that." Tenali Raman and the Ambitious Barber. The royal barber in the kingdom of Vijayanagar was an expert at his job. However, he was very dissatisfied with his work and always hoped to do something different. Some of the courtiers in the king's court heard about the barber's complaints. They decided that this was their chance to get rid of clever Tenali Raman, who they were very jealous of. They went to him and asked, "Barber, don't you want to do something other than cut people's hair? Why are you wasting your life like this?" The barber sighed and said, "I wish I could, but I have no other skills." "Don't be silly. You don't need any skills," the cunning courtier said. "Look at our Tenali Raman. All he does is tell the king funny stories and jokes and makes him laugh. You are more intelligent than him. You would make a better jester." The barber thought about it and agreed. The next day, upon the urging of his new friends, the barber requested the king to give him Tenali Raman's post. The king saw the barber's foolishness, but decided to let him learn his lesson. He said, "Okay, but remember, if you don't do a good job, I will send you away." From the very next day, the barber took Tenali Raman's seat. Raman, who saw him sitting there, bowed to the king and went away without a word. The courtiers were very happy to see him leave. However, the barber wasn't funny at all. He tried to crack jokes and amuse the king, but failed miserably. By the end of the day, he was feeling very ashamed. The barber was walking back sorrowfully to his house when he saw Tenali Raman on the way. Raman was busy scrubbing a black dog on the road. He was surprised at the sight and asked Raman what he was doing. Tenali Raman replied, "I don't like the black color of this dog, so I am washing it with soap until it becomes white." The barber laughed and said, "How can you change the color of a dog?" Raman replied, "Why not? If a master in his profession can do something else he is not even good at, I can surely change this dog's color." The barber understood what Tenali Raman was trying to tell him. He apologized to the wise jester. The next day, he went to the king and requested to have his old job back. The king happily agreed. Raman was welcomed back to the court and rewarded for his wit. Much to the dismay of the courtiers, Tenali Raman again became the king's favorite. Tenali Raman's gift. It was the festival season in the beautiful kingdom of Vijayanagar. All the people danced, sang, and celebrated. The kind king, Krishna-Devaraya, too wanted to share in this happiness. He decided to join in the festivals, by giving all his courtiers expensive gifts. That evening, he placed many wonderful gifts, gold and jewels, on the center table of the royal hall. He called his courtiers and said, "Come and pick whatever you like." The courtiers' eyes shone with delight. They rushed to collect their riches and merrily chose what they wanted. Just then, the king's clever court jester, Tenali Raman, entered the hall. He saw the crowd and waited quietly at the door, wondering what the rush was about. On his way out, one of the courtiers told Raman all that had happened and informed him that his share of gifts was on the table. But Raman saw that there was just one empty silver plate left for him. He calmly walked up to the table, took his plate and covered it with his silk scarf. Everybody was surprised. Curious, the king asked him the reason for his strange action. Raman replied, "I just want to save your name." "And how can you do that?" asked the king, more surprised. "Well, if I walk back home carrying an empty plate, people will think that their king is not rich enough. But if I cover it, they will think there's something inside," explained Raman. The king was pleased. He said, "Raman, you are right in protecting my name and honor. Now bring that plate here." Raman did as he was told. When he reached the king's throne, the king took off his precious pearl necklace and placed it on the plate. "There, now the plate is no longer empty," he said with a smile. So once again, Tenali Raman's wit came to his aid, and he was rewarded with the most expensive gift of all. Tenali Raman and the Stolen Wells. One year in the kingdom of Vijayanagar, the monsoon season was poor. The king ordered one of his ministers to dig fresh wells all over the kingdom so that his people would not suffer during the hot summer season. A lot of money was given to the minister for this important job. After a few weeks, the minister reported back to the king, "Your Majesty, wells have been dug all across the land, just as you ordered." The king went around the city with the minister to inspect the wells himself. He was pleased to see that they were well made and full of water. However, during summer, some villagers came to the capital, desperate to meet the king. But no one would let these poor people into the palace. Finally, they decided to meet Tenali Raman and ask him for help. The villagers told Raman that they had no water in their village. They said, "We've complained to the minister, but in vain. We want to meet the king, but the palace guards won't let us in." When Raman asked about the wells that the minister had built, they replied sadly, "There is no sign of any well in our village." Raman promised to help them. The next day in court, Raman told the king that there has been a theft of wells in a village. The king didn't believe him, so Raman said, "The villagers themselves are waiting outside. Ask them." The villagers were brought before the king. One of them bowed and said, "Your Majesty, we have come all the way to tell you that the wells made by the minister have disappeared. Now we are suffering without water. Please come and see for yourself." The king agreed and went to the village along with the minister and Raman. Sure enough, there were no wells to be seen. Then the king went around his kingdom and was angry to find that wells had been dug only in the capital city and the surrounding villages. The villagers further away had been left without a single well. The king understood that the cunning minister had taken some of the money for himself instead of using it for digging wells. He immediately ordered the minister to build 100 wells in the villages far away with his own money. Raman supervised the work and got it completed quickly. All the villagers thanked him for his help. Please click on the subscribe button